Las Vegas's gamble on professional sports. How Las Vegas is doubling down on Major League sports to remake its image into a fan-friendly town and draw in sports bettors. This presentation will review America's long history of sports betting, pros and cons of hosting professional sports teams, and how Las Vegas could profit from its investment in professional sports. Desperate times for the American economy pushed a major change in gambling attitudes in the early 1930s. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt took office in 1933, he inherited a national economy that was in ruins from the Great Depression. To re-energize the economy, FDR instituted a series of programs and projects called the New Deal that aimed to restore prosperity to Americans. These programs needed funding, which opened up pathways to generate that revenue through gambling. The Hoover Dam was a major initiative under the New Deal. In order to finance this project, gambling was legalized in Nevada. Following the legalization of gambling, bookmakers petitioned the state of Nevada to let them open sports books in the state. The petition ultimately succeeded, allowing legal sports betting to take place in the state. Bookmakers were given permission and the legal authority to accept bets on all professional sports. In 1951, Congress passed a federal excise tax on Las Vegas sportsbooks, saying that sportsbooks had to pay a 10% tax on money bet to stay in operation before accounting for customer payouts. This piece of legislation kept sportsbooks from being a viable business and ultimately drove the majority of sportsbooks underground, away from legitimate regulated channels. With such a hefty tax, legal sportsbooks could not compete with the black market, and the mob began to dip their fingers into the world of sports betting. For the next 20 years, organized crime grew exponentially, both in size and power, from the profits made through illegal gambling. A lot of ineffective legislation was passed in the meantime to shut down channels used for gambling, such as the 1961 Wire Act that made it illegal to use wire communication to pass information that assisted in betting on sports. Not until 1974 did the U.S. legislature, thanks to the efforts of Nevada Senator Howard Cannon, wisen up and realize they could drive demand to legal channels by lowering the tax on gaming revenue from 10% to 2%. With a lower tax rate, legal sports betting was once again an economically viable business for bookmakers. Sports betting proliferated across the country, riding a wave of positive legislation. This came to an abrupt end when Congress passed the ratified Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act in 1992. Also known as PASPA, the act expressly prohibited states from either allowing or offering any sports betting services related to either professional or amateur sports. Most fortuitous for Nevada, the state was grandfathered out of the effects of the legislation and exempt from PASPA restrictions, allowing Vegas sportsbooks to still accept bets on all sports. Yet this ruling wasn't the death knell to sports betting in the United States. Now so ingrained in the U.S. culture as acceptable, sports betting continued to surge in popularity, despite the federal government placing different restrictions on its legality, again, driving betting to be made illegally through local underground bookmakers. Yet, in 2018, that all changed when the Supreme Court ruled that PASPA violated the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. In 2014, New Jersey repealed its ban on sports betting within the state. The professional sports leagues promptly sued, citing PASPA, arguing that allowing sports betting to flourish could ultimately impact the integrity of the games played. The lower judicial courts sided with the sports leagues. New Jersey took their challenge to the Supreme Court, arguing PASPA violated the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, which prevents the federal government interfering in state government. The Supreme Court ultimately sided with New Jersey. This ruling opened the door for legalized sports betting operations to proliferate throughout the United States, and Nevada lost its monopoly on the legalized sports betting market. So how big of a market are we discussing? Investment firm Morgan Stanley predicts the U.S. market will generate almost $7 billion in revenue in 2025. Nevada is already seeing the impact of this market growth in spite of increased competition from other states. The overall amount wagered in Nevada set records in 2019, with 5.3 billion bet on sports in Nevada, an increase of 6.2% over the previous 5 billion record set the year prior. The state's sports books collected an all-time high of $329 million in revenue in 2019, an increase of 9.5% over the previous year. And the state continues to break records related to sports betting in 2020, with a September handle of $575 million, Nevada's fourth largest handle ever. Sports betting offers a much needed opportunity for Nevada casinos to tap into a broader, younger, and more affluent audience. According to a recent study conducted by Horowitz Research and Hearts and Minds, over half of sports bettors surveyed reported having an annual income greater than $75,000. The study also found that sports betting appeals to young, affluent sports fans across all races and ethnicities, yet the market is predominantly comprised of young, educated men with money to spend. And the market is growing, with 34% market growth anticipated due to the ease of placing bets online. Foreseeing a change in the sports gambling landscape, Las Vegas began reinventing itself as a sports town as a way to connect and engage with sports fans. In 2013, Las Vegas was one of 5 cities under consideration as home for the MLB team Montreal Expos, losing the bid to Washington, D.C. Then Mayor Oscar Goodman started pursuing an NBA franchise to relocate to downtown, and when those plans failed, attempting to bring Major League Soccer to Las Vegas. Not until 2016, when the NHL granted Las Vegas an expansion league, did Las Vegas start to be considered seriously as a contender for hosting Major League sports. The main reason behind Las Vegas's failed attempts, no arena or stadium existed in Las Vegas to host a franchise, nor was there a public appetite to spend taxpayer dollars to construct such a facility. Hence, no infrastructure, no team. What was unique about the city's bid to host an NHL team was that the franchise was also able to build a home arena and practice facilities without taxpayer assistance. T-Mobile Arena, home to the Golden Knights, is entirely self-funded. More importantly, the success of the Golden Knights proved Las Vegas had the infrastructure and fan enthusiasm needed to support Major League sports. In 2014, the Raiders were the only NFL team sharing a stadium with another professional sports team. The NFL concluded that the Raiders' current Oakland home stadium was not adequate enough for football, yet Oakland civic leadership hesitated raising taxpayer dollars to finance the needed renovations. Las Vegas agreed to commit $750 million in public funds to build a brand new stadium to host the team, the largest subsidy of its kind. The move to Vegas was on. So, what are the pros and cons for outlaying that amount of public funds to host a sports team? Consider this: $4.2 billion is wagered on the Super Bowl alone, with 97% of those bets made illegally. If Vegas were to capture a percentage of that gaming potential by entering into an agreement with the NFL, it would be a huge revenue boost for the state, as well as pave the way for other local gaming operators to make inroads with the NFL league. By courting the major sports leagues to invest in Las Vegas market, Las Vegas is creating a new local fan base to convert into sports gamblers, as well as engaging with existing sports bettors from outside markets through constant media coverage of the team throughout the season. Analysts predict an increase in fan engagement with the expansion of sports betting in the U.S., and 9 in 10 of those sports bettors will most likely visit a casino in the next 12 months. Convincing the NHL and NFL of the viability of Las Vegas as a safe bet was a huge win for the city in revitalizing its image as a sports-friendly town. Subsidies for stadiums come from tax revenues typically used to fund state services and improve the state's quality of life for its residents. Funding Nevadans desperately needed. Nevada ranks among the least educated states in the nation, with the 5th highest rate of child food insecurity in the country and 48th in the nation for overall health care. $750 million in education, health, and welfare investment could have gone a long way toward improving the overall well-being of Clark County residents. Instead, city and state officials believe subsidizing an NFL franchise would prove to be a better long-term investment for the community, in spite of the overwhelming research to the contrary. Time and again, researchers have found that hosting professional sports does not increase jobs or spend, but simply realigns those opportunities and expenditures toward the sport and away from other leisure activities. Though media attention and fan attendance increased during the season, and especially into the postseason, the boost in demand for local hospitality is temporary. The city's financial success becomes undeniably linked with the success of the team. Fans want to be associated with a successful team and motivated to attend more games and buy team-related merchandise. However, the revenue of these sales benefit the league and team owners, with the city possibly collecting a small percentage of sales tax revenue from purchases made within the state. Allegiant Stadium, the new home of the Las Vegas Raiders, is located near the Strip to encourage high level of foot traffic to games, a key recommendation of many analysts to encourage pre and post game activity within the city limits. Businesses wanting to be closer to the stadium are now paying a premium for real estate in that area, resulting in higher property taxes and land leasing revenue, as well as generating new tax revenue from business operations. Las Vegas has an established tourist destination well before the Raiders came to town and has the key characteristics needed to attract sports fans to visit. Good weather, perceived hospitality friendliness of the destination, and the availability of attractions and activities in and around the area have a positive impact on the number of sports tourists willing to travel to the area. Ultimately, being affiliated with professional sports results in continuous advertising for the city as teams are discussed throughout the year. Vegas being discussed in wider contexts helps the city's image evolve to be more than just a hedonistic destination for pleasure seeking millennial and bridal bachelor parties. The long term benefits behind promoting Las Vegas as a sports friendly environment is that the more people who know about a destination's offerings and cultures, the more likely it is that the destination will become more widely known and attractive to future and return visitors. While many states have enabled legislation legalizing sports betting, the market is still very much in an embryonic state relative to its potential. Currently, there are only a few states with the regulatory structures required to maximize this potential. Las Vegas aims to benefit from its long history in regulating betting to be able to offer one of the lowest digital tax rates available today. In conclusion, Las Vegas took a big gamble financially investing in professional sports. Only time will tell if the gamble pays off.